The tourism industry represents approximately 10% of the GDP of the country. In dollar terms, it brings 60% of the foreign exchange, that's 2.7 billion US dollars, and provides just about 220 billion Jamaican dollars in terms of direct taxes and other revenue into the Consol Fund. The employment it generates is 170,000 direct, and indirect and induced another 200 plus thousand. So overall, tourism is responsible for generating jobs in the economy overall of about 350,000. And that's significant. It's probably 1 in 5 of all the workers in the country. The value overall is not so much seen in terms of what the accommodation subsector looks like. In other words, not seen only in terms of the hotels, but it's in terms of the enormous linkages that it has with various other industries and sectors. Jamaica has been a leader in that whole analysis of the relationship between the small and medium enterprises and the big guys in tourism. 80% of tourism is really about small and medium tourism activities and enterprises. COVID-19 has been like a sledgehammer on a poor little fly. That tourism became pretty much like the flies. As much as you hear me talk about it and the fact that it is this global powerhouse now of an industry, it just melted literally under the weight and pressure of COVID. COVID is the only pandemic that has immobilized every industry, and definitely tourism has been the biggest casualty of COVID-19 all over the world. To wake up one morning after you have had a record arrival of 4.3 million visitors and find that 0 visitors came at your airport, 0 cruise passengers came at your port, and the earnings from 3.7 billion, and you wake up that morning and there was $0 US coming into the country. That's huge. But more so, the workers and the other entrepreneurs and investors who have been involved in the linkages, the value chain, as we mentioned, they themselves too. And to find that suddenly the certainty that they had of being able to meet their credit obligations to the banks and other places just disappear before their eyes. To see that the educational opportunities for the children literally disappearing as the school fees can be paid and so on and so on. It's an enormously depressing thought. And the impact, therefore, of COVID-19 on us has been that way. But it's a health issue. And it has given us also a level of strength and courage to fight, because we have to survive, and as a people we have to live, and globally we have to live. And we have had pandemics before and we have overcome them. It is true we've never had one like this, but what these things do to man is to build their own capacity and their resolve to be innovative, to find solutions, to be able to pivot. And that's what the human family is about, adaptability, to shift, to change, and to become what is required to survive as a species. And so I'm confident that yes, we will overcome COVID. And we have to build the capacity and the resilience, which is the word of the day. We have to build the strength to manage the crisis, and then to recover as quickly as possible, and more importantly, to thrive afterward. So these are the 3 steps that we have to take in relation to this COVID situation. One is to manage the process. And the government, through the Ministry of Health and the public health team and the minister, have been doing a marvelous job in the management of it. It's for us the risk. We have no vaccine, as you know, so we have established protocols. These are touch points that if we follow, we will reduce the possibility of infection. But we can't eliminate it, but we can reduce the possibility of it. So managing that risk becomes a daily chore and the responsibility of every single citizen in Jamaica. So that's one element. The second then is to make sure you recover and recover quickly. So that whole process of recovery is in terms of the science of it and the medicine that we provide and the hospital care that we have and quality of the teams that are working to identify where the spike is or where the virus is, and then to harness and to manage a recovery. And then thirdly is now to thrive after recovery, to be able now to go and grow again and give to the country a real chance to become the first world country that we're destined to be. So those three steps are critical, and the Ministry of Tourism, Government of Jamaica, all of us are committed to doing those three things. What we've tried to do is to develop a stimulus package which will assist in alleviating some of the pain that we have from, the various status that the workers have found themselves in. There are some who were laid off, others who were kept on a 1 day, 2 day, and also on an hourly basis. So what we did was to develop a series of arrangements to assist in relation to what the status of the workers were. And then also to look at those who were not workers at all, those who were just out there unemployed, but who hoped to find a job. So we established for that the compassionate grant to enable those who didn't have a job to have something, and also those who may have been of age, and not able to work. And then we looked at another category of those who are entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, and who were dependent on tourism. And then for them, we developed a discrete grant of a varying amount, depending on whether you're in transportation or you're a craft entrepreneur or whoever. And those grants were also given. And then the care package, which now related to those who lost their jobs as of the 10th of March and onward. And for that, we said, okay, we'll provide $4,500 per week. I think it's easier for us to talk about it per month. We're doing 3 months, $54,000 per person for the 3 months. So that's one. And then the others now would be those who were still unemployed, but at the level of 1 day a week, 2 days a week, a few hours a week, as the case might be. And for that, we provided a similar amount, but to the employers. So the employers could now ensure that the cash flow is there in a time when they are not doing any business to assist those workers this way. So that's from the workers' side. In the meantime, of course, we went through a big training program, as you know. We established an online training program covering about 11 disciplines, and we certified. And I'm proud to tell you that we are close to 5,000 workers who are certified as I speak to you now through that process. And then we also went into training workers now in relation to COVID readiness and what are the things to do, how to deal with the PPEs, how to observe social distancing or physical distancing, and generally how to handle guests who are coming in this period of COVID-19. And then of that, I think we've done nearly 20,000 already. The last figure I had was 16,000, and it's continued. And that was done online. But you would appreciate that that really is almost as a drop in the bucket, because with 16,000, yes, of the 170. But we're not taking back 170,000 people at the same time, as you know, because we are in a phase opening operation. and therefore, we are going to be taking back workers as we go along, as we expand. And I think a lot of the workers that are what we call indirect, that is like a transportation people and attraction, they also will come on in the next phase of the opening. So we will be seeing incremental increase in workers going back on their job. And we have had to establish protocols in relation to that now as a result of COVID. We're saying to begin with that there are 3 steps, screening, and then testing, and then the result of tests will determine quarantining, isolation, and the other medical steps. So if you come to Jamaica, first of all, we are using technology to help in that first phase of the screening. So before you come, you go on the Jump COVID website and you are directed, whether you're a Jamaican or you're a visitor, and then you are asked a series of questions which you just quickly answer, and then you are approved based on all of the answers that you're given. And then you go, you get your ticket, you get on a flight. The protocols in relation to that is not controlled by us. They're controlled by the airlines and the airports and so on, and originated in the country. But when you arrive here, you then go through our first stages of it. We match the data that you send with the data that we have, and we are able to eyeball it, and you move through as seamlessly in that regard as possible. And then you go through immigration. And while you are going to immigration, we have the opportunity to do a level of screening too, because we can do the temperature checks at the time, and photography work is done so that we can identify you with the data that we have before. Then after that, a series of medical routine kicks in, where you are then processed for the final screening and testing at the end of the arrangement. After you've tested, you all go to your hotels, and we have created a discrete geographical area in this first phase for all visitors to go. So all the visitors who come to Jamaica for this period have to operate within that corridor. We have some minor exceptions, I think, in terms of non-Jamaicans who have property here, and there's a regime for them. And then we look at a situation where, for example, a Jamaican who really has another citizenship and then have relatives here that they are going to. And then we have to do a level of geofencing to make sure that we can trace and track them wherever they are. The new traveler is going to be defined in a special way. In fact, we have called that demographic a Generation C. So a new generation of travelers, Generation COVID, called Gen C for short. And that demographic is going to be characterized by a demand for destination assurance. That is, health security being a big part of the reason that they travel to destination. They are going to, of course, be having to embrace a new mindset, a whole new behavioral pattern, and with social distancing being a big element of that will stay for a while. Learning to live and operate with these PPEs, and also to travel in specially designed craft where efforts are going to have to be made to keep sanitizing the aircraft as you fly, where your hostesses and so on are dressed all in what we call COVID appropriate regalia and so on. So it's a whole new ball game in terms of this new set of travelers, and they are going to be looking for countries that are what we call COVID resilient. And Jamaica is preparing itself in this way.
The Ministry of Tourism and its agencies have created a document that is about 130 pages long that speaks to all the health protocols for the various tourism businesses, as well as our tourism workers. The document was done after wide consultation with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and subsequent to that, it was endorsed by the World Travel and Tourism Council. Included in that document are 8 key health and safety elements of the Jamaican tourism sector. And these include sanitization stations, face masks or PPEs, physical distancing, clear, frequent and consistent messaging, technology enablement, real-time monitoring and reporting, rapid and clear response, and training for the tourism industry. TPDCo's training unit has been assigned the task of sensitizing the entire tourism sector on the protocols. This has been done through numerous mediums, including in-house training and online training. So to date, close to 20,000 tourism workers have participated in the sensitization sessions. And that includes in-house training that has been done in Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, Negril, and online. The information is also available on the TPDCo website, that is www.tpdco.org, and on our YouTube page, which is at TPDCoJA. The requirements to be COVID-19 compliant are: 1, the first requirement is that the entity must be a licensed accommodation with the Jamaica Tourist Board. And secondly, the entities must exist on the resilient corridor. Thirdly, each entity must submit to TPDCo for approval their COVID-19 plans, which would include a sensitization and communication plan, an emergency plan, and a physical distancing plan. After that's submitted, the staff for the entity would participate in a TPDCo COVID-19 protocols training session. And lastly, there would be a physical assessment of the entity. And once that physical assessment is successful, we would issue a COVID-19 resilient certification. Once an entity receives the COVID-19 resilient certification, they get a physical certificate in hand, and they would be listed on our website as being compliant. We will conduct, following the certification, we conduct some surveillance to ensure that the entity remains compliant. And in addition to that, the certification only lasts 3 months. So after the 3 months, they have to be recertified again. Our protocols documents the details for the actions that are required for each hotel or entity. In a nutshell, the entities are required to have certain things in place. For disembarking, space must be designated for guests to disembark their bus or shuttle, and they wait in their family or friends group with physical distancing in place. So they would be 6 feet apart or more between the groups. There's a welcome aspect. So when they're doing the physical distancing, there should also be on the ground physical distancing line markers for cues for distancing for each group. The check-in process, once the visitors disembark, they'll go through the actual check-in now, and we'd allow for contactless digital check-in where possible. We'd brief guests on the guidelines disclosing the COVID-19 information and hotel protocols. And of course, there'll be some sanitization of the luggage before guests can enter the room and of course they'll be provided disposable keys if possible. When it comes to the room amenities, this is shortly after check-in, they would notice that for all entities, the minibar services would have been suspended in all rooms, and all rooms would have been cleaned and disinfected. For food service, we have eliminated guest self-service on all buffet and bar options. So that will require that stations be manned by a dedicated staff member who would be handling utensils and serving food. The following should be always adhered to in order to ensure that employees are maintaining the safety protocols, and that the community is kept safe, the employees are kept safe, and the tourists are kept safe. Transportation is provided for employees from central points in the community to the work site. Employees will have access to on-site COVID-19 training. Employees should always wear a mask and must be reminded of frequent hand washing and sanitizing. There's staggered start times to ensure a smooth rollout. Temperature checks are done on all employees as well, so not just the guests, but on employees as well. And it's recommended that all employees change their clothes to a fresh set of work-provided uniforms upon arrival at work once they've signed it. And there should be laundering for clothes for employees if possible. Employees are reminded that they should always declare any symptoms of illness. The Health and Safety Risk Committee is very important. Each member of the committee is tasked with overseeing a certain protocol area. For example, one area might be room management, one area might be the bars and dining, another area might be entertainment. And they will gather information for employees to present to the committee for review and discussion. In addition, the committee should, 1, establish mechanisms to gather the information for data-driven decision-making. 2, carry out an evaluation of those measures and draw conclusions. 3, design the necessary protection measures included in a contingency plan. 4, ensure that workers receive adequate information and training for the implementation of the contingency plan. They also have to implement the contingency plan if required, based on the size and complexity of the business, and supervise its compliance, and of course assess its effectiveness. And lastly, they are required to modify the contingency plan if necessary.
Still, that protocol has to evolve and change and respond to what the market is really saying and what the customers out there are truly saying. So I think it is a period for us of iteration. We are going to have to continue to pivot and to change and to see new things and to find out what's best practices elsewhere and what other people are doing. So what is the picture that we are painting of immediate post-COVID? It's still a canvas working on. We haven't finished that design. I think the world is in that stage. What we know is that people will continue to travel, yes, and therefore they are looking for an experience. And we also know that they have historic senses of the experiences that have appealed to them. They still want their beach. They still want to have entertainment, good entertainment, food. They want the best food and the music. So all of these are key factors. And then there are those who are nature lovers who want to go in the wild to see the geophysical features of their country. And also others who just want to enjoy the people around. They love people and they just like the Jamaican hospitality and to associate with the Jamaican people. And that presents one of the big challenges, because with social distancing, we are going to have to define what social contact now means and how the guests and the visitors are going to interact. this is very important. You have to be also watching with the day, the hour as the flight comes in and everything, and working closely with health. So in all of this, we're managing the risk and to ensure that in every step of the way, we could keep our infection levels low and get the dollars back so that the livelihood of people can be secured while the health is secure. What we want as a vision now is for the tourism, which is bringing people together, to impact in a stronger way, social and economic. And the vision is to enable the level of linkages so that one tourism dollar can find its way in scores and scores of homes and families and communities across Jamaica.
The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted many of our plans. Of course, that has resulted in losses in the sector. However, what it has taught us is that we have to remain at the forefront of technology to ensure that we can deliver our product in a safe, secure, and seamless fashion. In addition to that, the pandemic has taught us that we need to ensure that we have a diverse and well-rounded product. Tourism is a leading industry in Jamaica and has contributed to approximately 350,000 workers, both directly and indirectly. It's important that we make sure that the entire industry is resilient to shock. Now, resilience doesn't mean that you won't face any challenges. There will always be challenges. But what resilience means is that you will recover from the challenges quickly because you put the systems in place to do so.